The Adab of Companionship, a commentary on Al-Adab Al-Mardiya by Sidi Shaykh Mohamed Faouzi Al-Karkari Qaddasallahu Sirra. Introduction. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of all worlds, the possessor of sovereignty and power, the first before all things and the last after all things. He whose manifestation is so intense that it is veiled from the sight of creatures, and whose concealment is so profound that intellects collapse in his presence. And may prayers and blessings be upon the Beloved, our Master, Lord of the two worlds, our leader Mohamed sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the seal of the prophets, the jewel of mercy, and the heart of existence. The Shaykh of our Shaykh, Sidi Mawlana Al-Karkari, said, if the adab are observed, the journey will be fulfilled. If there are no adab, then there will be neither adab nor journey. The true spiritual journey that leads the disciple on the paths of spiritual ascension towards the divine presence cannot be accomplished without adherence to the rules of etiquette, adab, established for centuries by Sufi masters and inheritors of the Muhammadan light. This is because access to the presence of the true cannot be achieved without first educating one's body and heart in absolute servitude, like a slave being introduced into the court of a king. And in order to apply these rules with the Creator, they must first be practiced with the Prophet, ﷺ. And to be able to apply them with the Prophet, they must be applied with one's brethren on the path and with the realized Shaykh, a friend or a wali of Allah. In this sense, understanding and applying the rules of adab is a fundamental requirement for the seeker of Allah, murid, that enables them to elevate spiritually in the luminous presence of the truth. And that is why the companionship of a true, accomplished, and realized Shaykh is absolutely essential. Shaykh Abu Yazid al-Bistami says in this regard that he who has no Shaykh, the devil is his Shaykh, for he finds himself imprisoned in the illusory darkness of his ego without the possibility of escaping, and he can only be guided by Satan. Others have said, without a Shaykh of Tarbiyah I would not have known my Lord, because entry into the circle of divine presence and knowledge cannot be achieved without passing through the door symbolized by the authentic Shaykh, who is a descendant and inheritor of the light of the Prophet, in accordance with his reported statement, I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate. Whoever desires to enter the city must pass through the gate. Thus, the relationship between the master and the disciple will be based on the observance of these rules of etiquette. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the sincere traveler to know and apply these rules in the presence as well as in the absence of their Shaykh, both externally and internally. Indeed, the initiatic relationship entails the total submission of the disciple to their Shaykh, so that the Shaykh can provide them with spiritual education and pour into their heart the spiritual flow or madad they will need to break free from the prison of their ego, allowing the light of the truth to fully inundate them. In this regard, when Imam Ahmad ibn Ajiba placed himself under the guidance of his Shaykh, he said to him, do with me as you wish and mold me as you see fit, because he was aware of his illusory reality in which he was trapped, and he knew perfectly well that the only true Shaykh possessed the key to liberate him from it. Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, on the other hand, uses a metaphorical example to explain the attitude that should be adopted by the sincere disciple in the company of the educating Shaykh. He says, the disciple should cling to his master like a blind person walking by the edge of a river, meaning that they should completely rely on the Shaykh and place their full and complete trust in the hands of the prophetic inheritor that the Shaykh represents. Thus, the importance of etiquette or conventions, adab, in spiritual journeying is such that many shuyukh have written on the subject. Among them is Shaykh Sidi Mohamed ibn Ahmad Al-Buzidi, may Allah sanctify his secret. One of the treasures he left us is his famous work on adab in the path of Allah, Kitab Adab al-Mardiya. It was his Shaykh, Mawlana Al-Karkari, who found these pages at his home and compiled them to create this indispensable work for the murid. The composition of this book took place in the year 2016 and deserves revisiting. One of the early disciples from Algeria, Sidi Abdul Qadir from Timimun, came to visit Sidi Shaykh Mohamed Faouzi Al-Karkari Qaddasallahu Sirra during the celebration of the Mawlid in December 2015. During an evening where our Shaykh was sitting amongst his disciples, Sidi Abdul Qadir showed the book of Shaykh Al-Buzidi to our Shaykh, who opened it and began reading the table of contents. Each chapter mentioned in the table of contents was commented upon by our beloved Shaykh. He spent the evening commenting on the table of contents, and when he finished he said, "There is great benefit in this book. I invite all of you to read it." The following Friday, after the weekly dhikr gathering, our beloved Shaykh showed the book to all the disciples present and said, "Read this book if you wish to progress swiftly." During the same evening, he asked a disciple present to translate it into the French language. Seeing the importance that our beloved Shaykh attached to this book, two French-speaking disciples, Sidi Mohamed Florian and Sidi Jamil, took the book and asked Sidi Shaykh to provide commentary on it. And so, every day for over 10 months, from January 2016 till October, our beloved Shaykh came to meet his disciples at the Zawiya to comment on the work of Shaykh Al-Buzidi. Some parts of this book are taken from the work of Shaykh Al-Buzidi, but the commentary diverges from it to such an extent that we prefer to write it in the name of Shaykh Mohamed Faouzi Al-Karkari Qaddasallahu Sirra. The commentaries took place daily, from the Duha prayer until the Dhuhr prayer, and then from the Asr prayer until the Maghrib prayer. 5 disciples attended the entire commentary: Sidi Muhammad Pierre, Sidi Khalil, Sidi Abdul Qadir bin Noah, Sidi Mohamed Florian, and Sidi Jamil. Each had a specific role. Sidi Jamil was in charge of translation, Sidi Khalil handled the video commentary, and Sidi Mohamed Florian was responsible for transcription. Afterwards, Sidi Ismail and Sidi Muhammad As-Susi reviewed, annotated, and participated in the transcription of the book. May Allah make it an accepted act of charity for everyone who participated in this book. Shaykh Mohammed ibn Ahmed Al-Buzidi, a biography. Shaykh Mohammed ibn Ahmed Al-Buzidi was born into the bin Salman Ghumari tribe. Son of a pious woman, he fervently sought the face of his Lord through fasting, spiritual retreat, and asceticism. While he was still very young, he had learned the entire Holy Quran by heart before setting off, inspired on a pilgrimage, siyaha, for a few years. Upon his return, he decided to seclude himself for months at Sidi Qasim near Tangiers. There's an evident parallel here with the life of our own Shaykh, Sidi Muhammad Faouzi Al-Karkari Qaddasallahu Sirra, who embarked on a pilgrimage of more than 10 years, during which he would seclude himself from people for many months, driven by his thirst for seeking the truth. Thus, Allah prepares His beloved ones by withdrawing them from worldly life. One day, Sidi Al-Buzidi met a pious person who explained to him that the spiritual journey requires affiliation with an authentic Shaykh, and wayfaring on the path of Allah is undertaken only under the guidance of an accomplished master. The pious person informed him that the authentic Shaykh of their time resided in Fez. Young Muhammad ibn Ahmed al-Buzidi then traveled to the imperial city of Morocco, even though he did not know anyone there, in order to meet the Pole, Qutb, and prophetic inheritor of his time, Sidi Shaykh Mawli al-Arabi al-Darqawi Qaddasallahu Sirra. Upon his arrival at the Darqawi Zawiya, he was personally welcomed by the Shaykh, who took him by the hand and brought him into the midst of his disciples, saying, "People like you do not stay outside the door. Come in, I have been waiting for you for a long time." Sidi Muhammad al-Buzidi then pledged his allegiance, bay'ah, to the Shaykh in order to benefit from his companionship, suhbah, and spiritual education, tarbiyah. The master gave him the wird, the daily litany, and the dhikr, or remembrance of the divine name of Allah. He relinquished all of his desires and placed himself in the service of the Shaykh's family, saying to them, "Everything that Allah has given to me belongs to you, including my soul." It was this attitude that allowed him to attain lofty spiritual stations. Indeed, the sincere traveler must detach themselves from this world and its contents and cultivate sincere love for their brethren on the path. They must overcome the love they have for themselves and assist their brethren without feeling any fatigue. Mawlay al-Arabi al-Darkawi even said about Sidi Buzidi, I love him. It is known among the people of Allah that when the Shaykh tells their disciple that they love him, it is a sign that the disciple is on the path leading to Allah. Sidi Buzidi remained in strict adherence to his Shaykh, who placed him into the spiritual retreat, or khalwa, during which he had a wakeful vision, mushahada, of the number 16. And indeed, for 16 years, he remained devoted to the service of his master and his brethren on the path. He never separated from his Shaykh, because he knew that the Shaykh was the center, or markaz, and the source. Sidi al-Buzidi strived to ascend to high spiritual stations to the point where his master publicly attested to his uniqueness and considered him one of his successors. While he was in a gathering of scholars and those with knowledge from Allah, Arifin, Shaykh al-Darkawi stood up and said, I swear by Allah that none of you has brought me as much good as Sidi Mohamed al-Buzidi, and no one has acquired as much knowledge from me as he has. Thus he received the great spiritual opening, Fath al-Akbar, and was authorized to become a Shaykh and admit disciples into the Darkawi path even during his master's lifetime. He even received permission to guide disciples into the spiritual retreat, al-Khalwa, and transmit spiritual secrets to them. The spiritual opening, Fath, is not reserved for someone who has completed seclusion and to whom the Shaykh has given many secrets. In reality, the opening is reserved for someone who has always remained in the center and the source until they themselves become the master. Shaykh al-Buzidi was aware of the importance of companionship and never left his master. Indeed, it is by remaining close to the Shaykh and extinguishing oneself in their actions, gestures, and words that one attains true knowledge. After receiving authorization, idhn, to guide people on the path of Allah, Shaykh al-Buzidi was sent by his master, Shaykh al-Karkari, to the Medina of Bin Salma to call people to Allah. There he opened a zawiyah in which he revived the hearts of those who were spiritually asleep. Many repented upon meeting him and committed themselves to him in order to benefit from the spiritual grace that flowed through him, bearing witness to waking visions, mushahadat. His reputation spread beyond his region and reached all of northern Morocco, where he propagated the light of Allah and his knowledge, al-Marifa. He embarked on numerous journeys, and in his presence, illiterate people were able to write profound wisdom and subtle words. This is how we recognize a true Shaykh. They do not merely relay knowledge from others, but extraordinary and new sciences and understandings emerge from their heart. Among his disciples, we find the great scholar of our community, the Arif Billah, the exegete, the jurist, and the hadith specialist, author of around 40 religious and poetic works, Imam Ahmad ibn Ajiba al-Hassani. If Imam ibn Ajiba reached the degree that is known of him, then reflect upon the reality of the one from whom he obtained his knowledge. Upon the instruction of his Shaykh, Imam ibn Ajiba had to embark on spiritual wandering, siyaha, and wear the pash cloak, al-Muraqqa, among other things. Sidi Shaykh al-Darkawi would say about Shaykh al-Buzidi, he is unique, the fard above the pole, because he has understood divine singularity, fardiyya, and its oneness. Shaykh Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Buzidi passed away before his master, who led his funeral prayer. After the prayer, the master declared, I swear by Allah that he is among the fards, divinely appointed of the awliya, the leader of the people of his time, and when he died, the heavens and the earth wept for him. Our Shaykh, Sidi Muhammad Faouzi Al-Karkari, Qaddisallahu Sirra, tells us in this regard that the death of the disciple before their Shaykh is great news for the disciple.